There is a specific kind of frustration that I think a lot of women in their 30s know really well. It's a frustration of doing the things that used to work and finding that they just don't produce the same results anymore. You do things like eat better, move more, and you try to be consistent, but the progress is slow or unpredictable or simply not what you were expecting. So you try harder, push yourself more, and still something feels a bit off. Underneath all of that effort, there is usually like a quieter exhaustion, a constant low level negotiation with food and your body that takes up more mental space than it probably should. You want to feel well and you want to feel comfortable in your body, but somewhere along the way, the pursuit of that has started to feel like a lot. Weight loss might be a goal of yours if you want to stave off certain illnesses and promote longevity, and that shouldn't come with so much exhaustion. In today's video, I want to talk about what is actually going on in your body during this season of life, as someone who is also in their 30s, and why approaches that worked in your 20s tend to lose their effectiveness, and what a genuinely different way of thinking about this looks like. Before we get into it, my name is Tomi, a certified nutrition coach, and this channel is for women who want to build real sustainable health in a way that feels effortless. If you like this type of content, keep watching and don't forget to subscribe. So the first thing I want to mention is that if weight loss feels harder in your 20s than it did in your 20s, you are not imagining it and you are not doing anything wrong. It's genuinely harder, and there are real biological reasons for that. The most significant shift is hormonal. From your early to mid 20s onward, estrogen and progesterone begin their slow fluctuation in the direction of perimenopause. These hormones play a meaningful role in how your body manages fat distribution and metabolism, and as they start to shift, you will often notice changes in where your body holds weight and how it responds to things you have always done. Closely connected to this is cortisol, your primary stress hormone, which has a direct relationship with weight. When cortisol is chronically elevated, as it tends to be for women carrying a significant load in this season of life, the body holds onto fat as a protective mechanism. From a biological standpoint, sustained stress signals scarcity, and the body responds by conserving resources. This is not a personal failing, it is your body doing exactly what it is designed to do. But it does mean that for many women in their 30s, stress is a more significant factor in their weight than anything they're actually eating. I definitely noticed this shift for myself as I entered into my 30s, particularly after I became a mom at 31. As beautiful as that newborn season was, it also came with stress in the form of less sleep and less time to prioritize certain healthy habits, and that can definitely take a toll. Other sources of stress can be career-related, general burnout, and even disillusionment with the state of the world right now. At this stage of life, muscle mass also begins a gradual natural decline. That's if you're not actively working to preserve it. And because muscle is metabolically active tissue, it uses more energy at rest than fat tissue does, so a slow reduction in muscle tends to bring a corresponding reduction in your resting metabolic rate. Sleep also becomes increasingly important and simultaneously harder to prioritize. Consistently poor sleep disrupts the hormones that regulate hunger and fullness, and over time, this compounds in ways that make weight management way more complex. A lot of this is to do with biology, and understanding it is what allows you to respond to it properly. The dominant approach most of us have been handed for weight loss is some version of restriction, like eat less, count calories, cut the carbs, and compensate through willpower. This does produce results in the short term for sure, which is why so many of us return to it repeatedly. But it has significant problems that become more pronounced as your hormonal landscape becomes more complex. Severe restriction actually elevates cortisol. When your body experiences a significant sudden calorie deficit, it reads this as a stress event, and cortisol rises in response. For a woman who is already managing a high stress load, restriction can create a hormonal environment that works directly against the goal she is trying to achieve. It is worth noting that a nourishment-first approach is completely compatible with intermittent fasting, as long as your eating window still contains enough genuinely satisfying and nourishing food. Fasting combined with severe calorie restriction is still restriction, regardless of the timing. Restriction also tends to significantly increase mental noise around food. The more foods you put on a forbidden list, the more mental bandwidth those foods end up consuming. For women who are already managing a great deal mentally, that cost is worth highlighting. If this topic of food noise interests you, by the way, I have a whole video about that on my channel, which you can check out after this one. I've spoken about this in a previous video as well, but to recap, restriction creates deprivation, deprivation creates preoccupation with food, and preoccupation eventually tips into overeating. The guilt that follows tends to produce a fresh resolve to restrict again, and the whole thing continues in a cycle. The shift that makes the most meaningful difference, as I've seen in my own experience, is moving from organizing your eating around reduction to organizing it around nourishment. These two orientations lead to very, very different lived experiences. When you are focused on restriction, food becomes primarily a numbers game. When you are focused on nourishment, on the other hand, food becomes a form of care. You're asking whether what you're eating gives your body what it needs to function well and feel good. Those questions lead you naturally toward whole foods and nutritionally dense ingredients without needing to build the mental architecture of like a formal diet around them. Eating this way supports genuine sustained fullness, which means you are not fighting constant hunger throughout the day. It also stabilizes blood sugar, which has a direct and noticeable effect on your energy and mood. And practically speaking, it tends to produce a gentle reduction in overall intake naturally because whole foods are just more filling than processed ones. You end up eating an appropriate amount because your body is satisfied, not because you've hit some kind of external target. For me right now, I actually don't track what I eat. That method can be useful for some, but what I choose to do instead is to build 80 to 90% of my meals around simple whole ingredients that have undergone little to no processing. I'm talking beans, leafy green vegetables, whole fruits instead of fruit juice, quinoa, fonio, nuts and seeds, just to name a few things. This has given me so much food freedom and led to me feeling so much better in my mind and body. To make this work for yourself, you just need to pay attention to building each main meal around a good source of fiber and unrefined carbs, some quality protein, and a healthy fat. That combination is what produces the kind of sustained fullness that quietens the constant mental noise around food. And as I mentioned, if you follow an intermittent fasting pattern, this framework applies just as well within whatever eating window works for you. Many women in my life that I've spoken to are not simply struggling with what to eat. They're also navigating a complicated and often painful relationship with their body that has been shaped over years of media and cultural messaging about what that body should look like. Approaching your health from inside that kind of history is really hard, and any honest conversation about weight has to acknowledge that. The reframe that has been most useful to me is this. When your motivation for taking care of your health is rooted in wanting to feel well and strong and comfortable in your body, the relationship with food and movement changes in character. It becomes something you do for yourself from a place of care. That shift sounds simple, but it really does change everything from the choices you make to how you feel about making those choices. On the topic of emotional eating, which is far more common than we'd like to think, food is comfort and food is culture, and using it for emotional regulation is a human thing to do. If you recognize this in yourself, the most useful question is not how to stop, but what else in your life helps you feel settled and cared for? Gently expanding that over time is a much kinder and more effective approach than trying to remove a coping mechanism without replacing it. The version of weight loss that is available to you in your 30s is one that works with your body rather than against it. It's one that nourishes you rather than depletes. And it takes your hormones and your stress and your sleep and your emotional relationship with food seriously as part of the broader picture rather than just an inconvenient complication. In my experience, this is also the approach that produces results that actually last, not just on the scale, but in how you feel day to day. Your energy, your relationship with meal times, your general sense of being well in your body, that is what we're actually building towards. If you want support doing this in a way that is specific to your life and your history with food and health, this is exactly the work I do with women one-to-one. The link to book a free discovery call is in the description below if you want to chat further. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye!